Emma had woken up with a rush of excitement this morning. Her neighbor, John, was arriving today from Paris after 2 long years. Emma had secretly loved John for as long as she could remember, ever since she was a child. She knew all his likes and dislikes from the many quiet observations and conversations she had had with his mother. She had even spent sleepless nights worrying about him when he moved to Paris. But today, her heart was filled with joy, as the thought of seeing him again filled her with anticipation. John's flight was due to land at 4 a.m. Emma had woken up at 2 a.m., spent hours getting ready, staring at her reflection in the mirror, her heart racing as she waited for the first sign of his return. At 5:30 a.m., she finally heard the car's tires crunching on the gravel outside. She peered through the curtains, her pulse quickening as she saw John step out of the car. He had become a little thinner, but the neatly groomed moustache and the confidence in his stride made him even more handsome. Butterflies fluttered in her stomach as she felt a shiver race down her spine. She turned away from the window, a smile playing on her lips as she took a deep breath. At 6 a.m., her mother, still half asleep, was surprised to see Emma already dressed and full of energy, something she'd never seen before. Usually not an early riser, Emma was acting completely out of character today. When her mother casually mentioned that she was going to get some milk from the local store, Emma eagerly volunteered to go. This was something she had never done before. Emma knew John's routine well. He always spent the mornings sitting in the garden with a cup of tea, reading the newspaper. As she went to get the milk, she couldn't help but steal a glance at him. Her heart swelled with admiration, but then a thought suddenly crossed her mind. What if there were other girls after him? The mere thought made her stomach twist with jealousy of even the idea of other girls. But the thought quickly faded. It was then that her world shattered. Out of nowhere, a dark figure grabbed her, pulling her into a van that sped off into the early morning mist. Emma was too stunned to scream, too confused to fight. She had no idea that the world was darker and more dangerous than she had ever imagined. A rejected proposal by a drug addict had triggered a nightmare she couldn't have foreseen. Her parents searched frantically for her, and by evening, she was found lying by the roadside, battered and covered in blood. Emma was broken, both physically and emotionally. She couldn't recognize the world around her. She refused to see anyone, her face twisted in fear, her eyes hollow. She screamed and pushed everyone away. Even her father couldn't comfort her. Every face she saw seemed monstrous to her. The doctor sedated her, hoping she would rest. But when she woke, the world seemed even emptier. She didn't speak. She barely moved, her gaze fixed on the ceiling as she sank into a deep, comatose state. Her mother was devastated, and her father felt utterly helpless. Seeking solace, he turned to his best friend, John's father, for support. As he arrived at the hospital, he received a call from John. With a heavy heart, he recounted the entire, tragic tale to him. There was silence on the other end of the line. A few seconds later, the call ended. John arrived shortly afterward, his heart weighed down with grief. He looked at Emma's anguished parents, their faces showing years of pain, before walking quietly to her bedside. He sat beside her, looking at the fragile, broken woman who had once been his childhood companion, and whispered softly, "I don't know if you can hear me or even remember me. But I've loved you since we were children. I've always wanted you to be mine. That's why I studied hard, built a career, and came back, hoping to finally tell you how I feel. But now, fate has been cruel to both of us." His voice trembled, tears brimming in his eyes. "But nothing has changed for me. You're still the one I want. I'll wait for you. No matter how long it takes." With a heavy heart, he stood up, fighting back the tears, and left the room without looking back. What he didn't see was the single tear slipping down Emma's cheek. Her throat tightened, her body aching to speak the words he longed to hear, but she couldn't. They were trapped inside her. John never knew that Emma's greatest fear, the one that had driven her into this silent world, was that her trauma would drive him away. She thought she was no longer worthy of him, that he would see her as broken. What no one realized was that the best medicine for her condition wasn't a doctor's prescription, it was John. His presence, his love, and his words held the power to heal her, to restore her faith in love and humanity. Now, she had finally received that love, and with it, the strength to fight her pain. She knew she would recover soon, because there was something she needed to do. She had to tell John how she felt before it was too late.